Everyone knows Quiet Overnight, but modern carols are yet creature spelled. We encounter two of the UK's largest famous composers, John Rutter and Bob Chilcott. Of the pleasant things on Yuletide piece of music is how you get 11 months off of it. So says Mr. Yuletide oneself, superior named as John Rutter, a choir round D strength, songwriter of several of the UK's largest famous modern carols, and wizard of ritual at the King Philharmonic Society's yearly Yuletide gig. But the 73-year-old, whose December is busier rather than Santa's, says same's never grown up weary of the time of year. Thou do get 11 months off, but by the period Yuletide comes about, it's crisp once again, and while you listen the identical carols of year to year, it buns several of the threads of yours lifetime along. It's beautiful, since we do see for assurance in a change planet. Rutter is one of the planet's largest success, and largest performed, residing composers, possession, a wonderful intuition for vocals tune, and a ease of concern how makes his piece of music available and pleasant for performers and audiences alike. But it is as a author of carols how same's very done his mark. He wrote his at first, The Birth Carol, while he was 16-year-old and student at London's Highgate School, and created the cheerful, lyric Herdsman's Tube Carol not length following. I believe the concept was my high school chorus would execute it at their Fest of Niner training session and carols, he recalls, yet I'm not certainly they always did, since at how spot I leftward and excited on to college. I had no mind of it creature published, but speech achieved the ears of Sir David Wilcox, who was really lot related in Yuletide piece of music and carols oneself, and he requested to see it. So, he in fact requested to see all kinds of things, but the Herdsman's Tube Carol might include been close the top of the heap, and he looked up at me and told, would you be concerned in the creature published, and how it all began. With later, Rutter has spelled more than rather than 6 carols, in the Ass Carol, the Herdsman's Tube Carol, and the really top period of year amongst the UK's largest performed modern choir plant. So how does he go on to discover inspire of the identical Bible history, year following year? How's love proverb, how do you go on to delight a nicely cooked food, he laughs. These are pleasures how remain in you and go about and about human beings love how Yuletide remnant such to how it was. While you listen a carol love off in a creche, it's love thou re a kid once again. How's one of the things how makes Yuletide so magic. End of YouTube position by Cambridge Singers. Theme Rutter points out how carols are one of the senior forms of British language choir piece of music, since the 15th age chapel permitted them to be sung in the overall language, at a period while sectarian services were carried out in Roman. The one refer in British of a Yuletide carol appears in a 1426 job by John this Curtin Audley, a priest who done a listing of 25 carols of Distamas, sung by revelers who went of doorway to doorway for the celebratory time of year. At the spot, they were mostly national songs, more than often sung in pubs rather than churches, that is why so lot of the lyric donkey rather job. How, for sample, did 3 sea vessels go shipping in Bethlehem, a town house a nice 70 kilometer of the ocean? The reply is they were perhaps camels, the sea vessels of the abandon, but not ones very certainly. And which include ilex and ivy got to do in the birth? They've been retrospective declared as a metaphor for Jesus's corona of thorny bush and the bloodstream he barn, but how explain is more than apt for Easter rather than Yuletide. It wasn't before the Victorian era how carols became solidly related in sectarian celebrations. How's all thanks to Edward White's Benson, the at first Archbishop of Truro, who in 1880 invented a new kind of facility, the Niner training session and carols. Take Niner Bible passages on the Yuletide history and interspersing them in hot carols and hymns, his intent was, at low in portion, to get his meeting out of the public house. In spite the reality how Truro Council was yet creature constructed, importance the at first facility had to be detained in a interim wood barn, the Niner training session facility was an instant successful. It's real, Yuletide heritage as we aware it didn't begin how length back, says Bob Chilcott, one day outlined as a modern character of UK choir piece of music by the Watcher, who has spelled and organized a wealthy stitch of Yuletide piece of music. We ever had Yuletide hymns but carols, in a feeling, were fair songs in a choir how human beings could accede in, thou might say they're a shape of national artwork. Chilcot has added to the canon law in the delicate and reflecting herdsman's carol and the adorable stroke of midnight of yours childbirth, spelled particularly for families' choirs. So is down there any blood pressure to dwell up to the likes of Listen the Vestnick Angels or Quiet Overnight while thou rewritten new carols? I discover it quite useful, says Rutter. Thou sense love thou re-addition one more than slight slab to a enormous tile. It's pleasant to immortalize the heritage in new carols, agrees Chilcot. We're rather nice in the nation. We're rather outdoor to new ideas. I've found human beings love to chant the conventional ones, but they love to go on and try new things, too much. End of YouTube position by Tim James. The includes Chilcot's extremely pleasant location of 12 days of Yuletide, in that each repeat of 5 O-rings is a distraction in a new style, of jazzy to sermon and though barber. Ever guarantee a enthusiastic answer. It was initially spelled for the 2002 Chorus of the Year contest, but Chilcot reveals the melodic pastiches were unborn of need. 5 O-rings, fair how slight bit of the chant, is yet in copyright law, he explains. I cut how tune out and wrote my own slight release to fit the styling of every of the newcomer soloists and groups. It's a bit of an eccentric location but it planned rather so. Rutter, an old boyfriend and coach, is more than expansive. It's so lot entertainment, he enthuses. It's so lot more than rather than an location of 12 days of Yuletide, it's an epical. It ever brings the building downward. For the auditorium, the gig will ensure more than rather than quite Yuletide piece of music to recent Sesame 2019, but Rutter and Chilcot don't include it so lightweight. To lot choirs, Yuletide is their major gig of the year, so they begin preparation and cast out for ideas in the springtime, says Chilcot. So I frequently compose a lot of Yuletide piece of music direct following Yuletide himself. It's a nice period to do it since it gets a bit odd if you begin written on the snowing in the medium of the summer.